The Wealth of Some Nations. Section. British Income in the Absence of Empire. U.S. economist Michael Edelstein, specializing inter alia in the economics of the British Empire in the 19th century, has attempted to measure what Britain gained from the underdeveloped parts of its empire. He has done so through positing a counterfactual condition, namely, that the aforementioned countries had remained independent. Edelstein argues that if the Empire territories had remained free from British rule, they would not have participated in the international economy to the same extent that they in fact did. Thus, he writes, the British Raj brought a more peaceful, unified, and commercially oriented political economy to India than would have been the case if the country had remained independent. While India was by no stretch of the imagination a peaceful place under British rule, and it may have been more commercially engaged abroad than Edelstein supposes, his working assumption that Britain's trade with India and the other non-Dominion regions would have been a quarter of its existing level in 1870 and 1913 in the absence of British rule is plausible. Edelstein estimates the gains made by Britain from trade with its colonies in the following terms. Beginning of long quote. Summing the 75% reduction to British exports to the non-Dominion colonies and the 30% reduction to British exports in the Dominion regions, weighted by their respective shares in British colonial exports, British colonial exports in 1870 and 1913 would have been 45% of their actual levels under this strong non-imperialist standard of the gains from empire. The shares of white settler and non-white settler colonies in British exports to the colonies were approximately 45% and 55% respectively. With their, quote, strong non-empire levels hypothetically reduced to 0.7 and 0.25 respectively of their actual levels, British exports to both types of colonies would have been 45%, 0.7, plus 55%, 0.25, equals 45.25% of actual levels. The, quote, strong gain is the difference between the actual British Empire exports and this hypothetical 45% level in the absence of empire. British exports of goods and services to the empire were approximately 7.9% and 11.9% of GNP in 1870 and 1913. Therefore, the strong gain from empire was 4.3%, i.e. 55% of 7.9% of GNP in 1870 and 6.5% of GNP in 1913. End of long quote. According to the Bank of England figures listed in Table 7.2, GFCF was 7.55% of Britain's GDP in 1870 and 7.13% of its GDP in 1910. Using Edelstein's, quote, strong non-imperialist standard, we may therefore suppose that around 57% of Britain's fixed capital investment in 1870 and 91% of its fixed capital investment in 1910 was funded by its colonial trade. End section.